Hello and welcome. I am Raziel and I want to talk about the real problem with the Rogal Dawn tank. Now, I'm seeing more complaints that it's about the lore of the tank itself. You know, it's always been there but never mentioned. And I will discuss this, and I will think this is just a wrong thing to say. It really is. I know people are going to argue that point, but it is, by the way. It's wrong. Let's see, just because something's never mentioned in a setting such as 40k, which is an expansive setting, especially the Horus Heresy itself, you know, it's a massive setting, and the fact they don't mention one certain tank in that, though I'll be honest with you, in the Horus Heresy there was the Chimera chassis, which isn't in any rules, but this is part of that conversation anyway. I'll bring that back later. Doesn't really mean anything. Just because it's not mentioned doesn't mean it's not there. It's this weird thing in narrative writing, but wargaming tends to suffer the most because, you know, these models should be there. You know, these somehow should have been mentioned. And the fact that, you know, the Rogal Dawn doesn't even have rules for the Horus Heresy as well, it raises another issue. But, you know, it's always been there, and now it's just being mentioned. And yeah, it could have been implemented better. It definitely could have been implemented better. You talk about Games Workshop here, anything they add new nowadays, you could have literally got a blindfolded monkey to implement it better at this point. With the type of just blind, blah, 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 and it would still make a better reason for what Games Workshop's saying. And it's not even that difficult for something like a tank. It's the Mechanicus have discovered a new STC, and they've allowed it to go out into combat. That would have been a great implementation of the Rogal Dawn tank. It's very simple, it fits the lore, it fits the narrative, fine. But they didn't, and they go with it's always been there now. It's sort of like their go-to with any new change. It's always been there, we just never spoken about it before. You know, like the Leagues of Votan were always there, but we never spoke about them. You know, there were always squats about, no, you know, that sort of thing. And it's sort of like the scapegoat with Games Workshop, where they cannot, or they will not, be able to write something into the lore that fits, you know, and just, you know, add something new to it. They kind of have to say, oh no, it's always been there. It's a silly argument and a silly discussion, but when it comes to the Rogal Dawn tank, it's something that people are focusing on and they shouldn't be. Why? Because the kit is bad. It's a bad kit. It's a broken kit. It's an incomplete kit. I feel like I should be in Starship Troopers right now, talking about Kandafu. But here we go. It is an incomplete kit. It doesn't have a bottom on it. It doesn't have a bottom. Like, if you were to buy any other model tank that didn't have a bottom, that would be your biggest issue with it. It doesn't matter what game it's for. It could be for Firefight, 40k, Conflict 47. Do they have tanks? I've only just been looking up since Andy Chambers has joined the creative team. But you know what I mean. So basically, every other game would have been focusing on the fact that the kit is incomplete. That would be the big issue around this. This whole, you know, the kit is incomplete, and basically refuse to buy it because why would you buy an incomplete kit? It would sort of be that kit that Granny would buy because, you know, my little Timmy likes the Imperial Guard. You know, that sort of kit. Rather than having been a mainline kit. So they buff the rules, make it quite good, so people buy it. And that comes into the discussion going the other way, which, again, no one seems to argue about. The fact that there is many models and kits in 40k that are in the Horus Heresy. The Venerable Dreadnought is there. There is the Chimera chassis. They are there. Let's have a look. What else is there? I'm not mentioning the Xenos at this point because that would be a dead horse to flog. But there is many there. But for some reason, there's no rules for these. There's no rules for the Venerable Dreadnought, though the Venerable Dreadnought was there. the Mars pattern tanks. But then again, the Mars pattern tanks work as the Deimos pattern anyway, and doesn't really matter. But no rules for them, no Predator. It's Deimos Predator tank, and that to me is a bigger issue. That to me is a far bigger issue than something insignificant written about a tank always being there. And the same with the Fulgrim model, and this bothers me the most because that's a demon Fulgrim. Demons don't really change that much. They are not so massively, they are not so massively different from the 40k and the Horus Heresy versions. Demons are demons. Fulgrim Demon will look the same in 40k, whereas so few people have made the argument. The model looks good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good. It's not worth the money, by the way. It's far too expensive, but it looks good. I have no complaints there. The rules are pretty good as well. It can take out a Titan with lots of luck. But Demon Fulgrim should be in 40k because he's in 40k. The fact he's not, and people aren't making the biggest stink that are making a bigger thing about the Rebel Dawn always being there, rather than an actual model that has always been there within the lore, and no one's talking about why he isn't in 40k. Again, this just boggles my mind. The same with Mortarion, Angron, and Magnus. Those three models. No one's complaining that there's no Horus Heresy rules for them yet. And when they do get them, you know for a fact that these models, even though they're the exact same character, exactly the same mold, shape and form and everything, but they were in the Horus Heresy, aren't going to be the same ones. You're not going to be able to use those plastic ones. You're going to have to use the resin ones. I don't know why. It seems silly to me, personally, but that's just the way it is. And again, we're not going to get any stink from that. Though I do say it's a massive issue. And I would say this with any game. If a game has, two games in the same timeline and the same character in the same timeline and makes, models, two different models for each part of the timeline, and refuses to let you use them in the other timeline, the other time era, I should say, not timeline. I would say exactly the same. I would say this is wrong. This is absolutely wrong. And I would kick up a stink about this. But people do argue about the insignificancies, the irrelevancies of the hobby. And they'd rather argue about these irrelevancies. And in my opinion, and I gotta say this, in my opinion, it's because if they start talking about the important things, they're gonna get massive buyer's remorse. They're gonna get that feeling that they've wasted their money. They'll forget all the fun they've had with the games, or all the fun they've enjoyed with the hobby. They'll forget that, but they'll start getting buyer's remorse. They'll start thinking like they've wasted their money, and they don't want to go down that route. It is a hard route to go down, don't get me wrong, and it does take a proper grieving process when you spend a considerable amount of money on a hobby and you realise that it's just not that good anymore. It does take a grieving process, don't get me wrong. It is a hard road, and I will support you in this no matter what. Because, if you are starting to realise that a company isn't doing what it's worth, or you don't think it's worth the quality anymore, then yeah, you should move away. And there you go. So that's just talking about insignificancies in the hobby, and I brought the Rogal Dawn tank up because it is the most relevant to the discussion. And here's the thing, I know how hard it is to give up something. Like I said, I like the Horus Heresy tanks. I think they look fantastic. I really do like them. Actually, my last thing I ever bought for Games Workshop was a Horus Heresy tank. It was a Vindicator. And so, yeah, I understand how hard it is, and it's the one game system that could kind of drive me back. Games Workshop really have to produce something of a high quality for me to go back to Games Workshop. And it has to be Horus Heresy, because 40k just won't do it for me. Age of Sigmar doesn't do it for me. The Old World, I've read the rules, doesn't do it for me, and I was excited for that. I was really excited for that. But if they produce something of good quality in the Horus Heresy that's going to actually get me back and make me think, oh, actually this is worth my money. And at the moment it would have to be some sort of knight. I'm not lying, it would have to be a knight. Oh, a really good tank. And yeah, that's just it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I will speak to you in the next one. There will be a second video today. I have been so busy with work at the moment. I can do a quick 10-minute video like this. It doesn't take much scripting for this sort of video. And I will get a second video out today because I'm taking a half day just to get that done. But I'm going to be busy all weekend, so kind of only expect one video over all weekend. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you wish to save money on your Warhammer or anything like that, there is Wayland Games down below. Save up to 20% on Warhammer actually, and free delivery after 20%. After £20, free delivery after £20. After 20%, that doesn't even make sense. There is also Forbidden Planet World comics, geeky stuff, movie facts, you know, all that's cool, fun stuff to do with movies, video games, comics, toys, plushies, books, you know, all the cool stuff. Is Guy Forge. Don't forget to give that guy a click. He's a good friend of mine, and he does Pokemon cards, a lot of Pokemon cards. There is also my merchandise as well, you know, t-shirts, notebooks, bags, all my artwork. There's my comic as well, which was written and drawn by me. And finally, Patreon, because business. Bye bye.